Before the world knew of one God, it knew of many. Our story begins not in a time of clarity, but in an age of flourishing empires and powerful deities. We travel back 4,000 years to Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. Here, between the fertile banks of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, stood the magnificent city-state of Ur. It was a center of commerce, culture, and power, dominated by the great ziggurat, a temple dedicated to the moon god, Nana. The people of Ur lived in a world governed by a pantheon of gods who were often as unpredictable and demanding as the rivers themselves. It was a world of stone idols and ritual practice, a world where humanity's connection to the divine was forged in temples built by human hands. But in the heart of this polytheistic world, one man would hear a different call, a voice that would not ask for temples of stone, but for a temple of faith built within the human heart. His name was Abram, and as he looked upon the starry night sky of Ur, he heard that voice. It was an unknown God who made an incredible promise. Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. This is the story of that man, and how his faith changed the world forever. With his wife Sarai, Abram began the long journey from Ur to the promised land of Canaan. Imagine the difficulty of this journey. They were of an old age, traveling through harsh lands, following a promise from a God they were only beginning to know. The most challenging part? The promise of a great nation seemed impossible, for they had no children. Their faith was not always perfect. Driven by a famine, they traveled to Egypt. There, fearing for his life, Abram made a great mistake, telling Sarai to pretend she was his sister. It was a moment of doubt that showed even a man of great faith could falter. Yet God protected them, and they eventually left Egypt. Their wealth increased, but their faith truly tested. Years passed, and still Abram and Sarai remained childless. Doubt could have easily taken root, but it was in this moment of uncertainty that God solidified his promise. He brought Abram out under the night sky and made a covenant with him. Look up at the sky, God said, and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. So shall your offspring be. Abram believed, and this faith was credited to him as righteousness. It was then that God changed their names, sealing the covenant forever. Abram, High Father, became Abraham, father of a multitude. And Sarai, my princess, became Sarah, princess to all. The promise was no longer just for them, but for the countless generations that would follow. Let us pause here. The changing of a name in the ancient world was a profound event. It signified a change in destiny, identity, and purpose. By renaming Abram to Abraham, God was not merely giving him a new title. He was embedding the promise directly into his very being. Abraham would no longer be just a man. He would be a living, breathing testament to a future he could not yet see. Yet, more time passed. In a moment of human impatience, Sarah, unable to conceive, gave her servant Hagar to Abraham, and Ishmael was born. This was man's attempt to fulfill God's promise. But God's plan was different. He appeared to them again and promised that Sarah herself would bear a son in her old age. When Sarah overheard this, she laughed in disbelief. But a year later, the miracle occurred. Abraham, at 100 years old, and Sarah, at 90, welcomed their son. They named him Isaac, which means he laughs, a constant reminder of their initial doubt transformed into ultimate joy. The promised child had finally arrived, proving that God's timing, though mysterious, is always perfect. Abraham's faith would face one final unimaginable test, God commanded him, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering." This command is one of the most difficult passages in all of Scripture. With a heavy heart, but with profound obedience, Abraham journeyed for 3 days to the mountain. He built the altar and bound his beloved son. As he raised the knife, an angel of the Lord called out from heaven, stopping him. "Do not lay a hand on the boy," the angel said. "Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Nearby, Abraham saw a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. God had provided the sacrifice. This moment was the ultimate demonstration of Abraham's trust, a faith that was willing to give up even the very promise he had waited a lifetime for. The binding of Isaac is a story that has been debated for centuries. It challenges our understanding of faith and obedience. But many see it not as a test of cruelty, but as a profound lesson, that we must trust God's plan even when it makes no sense, and that true sacrifice is not about what God takes from us, but about what we are willing to offer Him. It was the moment Abraham's faith became absolute. Abraham's story is the bedrock of faith. His journey from a pagan city to the father of nations was not one of perfection, but of persistent belief. Through his obedience, he became the patriarch. But his legacy extends far beyond a single lineage. Today, over half the world's population belongs to a religion that traces its spiritual roots back to this one man. For Jews, he is Avraham Avinu, their first patriarch. For Christians, he is the father of faith, whose trust in God foreshadowed the coming of Christ. And for Muslims, he is Ibrahim, a cherished prophet of God who submitted to Allah's will. From one man's journey out of Ur, a spiritual family tree grew, its branches stretching across continents and millennia. Abraham's story is a timeless testament that from ordinary people who choose to trust an extraordinary God, a legacy that can outnumber the stars can be born. It is the story of a promise kept and a faith unveiled.